Okay, so here is the next card. So again, as I said it earlier, this first turn, the December 41 turn, only has 2 cards in it. This is the E operation, and really what this card is saying, and again, when the game first came out, if I were to imagine something that I did not foresee, is that how creative people could be about the conditions on this card. There are some really cool and interesting plans that people have come up with that are kind of interesting to play with, and so people really let their imaginations soar. We periodically, when we play on Consum World, we periodically do a 41 start, and we have discovered some pretty effective and more aggressive and more effective Japanese plans with this card. How one imagines going forward. But again, this was meant to be a solitaire scenario in my case. So again, very rarely do we start with the 41, but again, it's a great way to learn the game. And so going on with the thing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you in the next shot from the sequence play what units were activated. And what this card basically is allowing you to do, and there's no other card that even like it in the game, is you basically have 3 Japanese HQs, and you can basically activate, as you can see in the card, 26 units. So this is sort of this massive pre-planned attack. And as I said before, my Empire of the Sun gaming friends, some of them have come up with brilliant plans to take those 26 things and do things that I did not foresee. So subsequently, over time, I've put a better set of restrictions on what happens with this card. That's in the rules, in the version 2.0 rules, which are the final rules of the game, and are accessible from my website, www.e-markherman.com, and you could download for free the version 2.0 rules, and there's a FAQ on there, and there's articles and all sorts of cool stuff. So anyway, anytime you want, just go to that location and find more resources for the game. Of course, the other big resource for the game is I write frequently on this in C3I magazine, Roger McGowan's flagship magazine for GMT games. And in fact, I have another huge article coming out on opening Japanese theory in the next issue, number 27. So look for that. So this card now is going to launch a massive attack. And so what I'm going to do in the next shot is I'm going to sort of describe the long term, what the Japanese are trying to achieve in the opening, and we'll get to that in a second. Okay, now what we're going to do now is I'm going to basically follow the example on page 40 of the rule book, section 19.0, the comprehensive example of play. I'm going to do it sort of piece by piece, but you'll note that a lot of the Japanese units are canted, so let me zoom in on anywhere. If you take a look here, you see I've shifted them out and I've sort of spread them out a little bit so you can see what's going on. But what's happened is I have activated 20. So the sequence of play says that when you do an offensive, the first thing you do is activate units. A lot of people, again, do not follow the sequence of play. They activate a unit and then they move it, then they activate another unit and they move it, and it often leads to problems in the game. So almost every single timing question, or I don't understand this question that I get pretty much, is because people are not following the sequence of play of an offensive. It's section 6.2 of the rules. If you just follow that step by step until you get used to it, you can start taking shortcuts once you understand it better. But I would just suggest for the first couple of playthroughs, just follow it carefully and you won't have any problems. And so as I scan around, you see all the so these forces here in this shot are Japanese forces that were in French Indochina. Most of these are going to basically enter. They had actually had a deal made with Siam, who neutrality of pass-through attacks. They didn't want to get overrun, so they cut a deal. But basically, these Japanese armies are going to march through overland into Siam and up to the Burma border, and also down into Malaya, which is over here to the shot there. And then you have this. You'll see there this unit right over here is a cruiser with a Japanese Marine unit that's going to invade Borneo. Then over here, you'll see over on Hainan Island, there's a Japanese, the 25th Army. It's actually a division of the 25th Army because it's on its reduced side, but it's going to basically attack and invade Malaya by sea. Then you'll see you'll see these two pieces up here. This is Hong Kong, and it's got a very weak but tough little unit there. But it's about to be attacked by a Japanese division. Actually, it was the 38th Division, I think, historically. And then over here on Formosa, you'll see all sorts of things. You've got a cruiser, a battleship, a bunch of aircraft. This is the forces that are, and then you also see a unit that's over here in Okinawa. So those units in the shot are all going to invade the Philippines. Again, this is following the original historical Japanese plan. And then as we move across the Pacific, this is Truk. So you'll see the south, that's an HQ, by the way. This is an HQ unit. You can tell it from the red number. It's got a range of 12 and an efficiency rating of 2. And you've got two small invasion forces, one with again a Marine unit that's going to go off and conquer Guam, and then there's another that 6-6, which is actually a very important piece of the game because it's an Army unit, but it's treated, it's really pretty much one of the premier amphibious units for the Pacific. It is going to invade Rabaul, which is on New Britain, which is an Australian holding, and then over here you see again another unit, and actually I have a mistake here. This unit's not reduced, it's full strength in this scenario. I had it set up originally for the 42 scenario. That's not very good in the shot, but like now you can see it a little better. So basically you've got some light naval forces and you've got some air power and all that. Now what's important is normally an amphibious unit can't enter an enemy zone of control unless it has an enemy's air zone of influence from an airplane, which this air unit would be supplying, and those are the ones that were flown off by, I think it was the Saratoga, but it's in the Lexington piece, early in the war. No, the Enterprise flew those off to there, I believe. But anyway, the Enterprise had flown those, that squadron of Marine air units. It's just 12 F4F Wildcats. But they were significant in having any air power is important. But the EA card has a special rule that no Allied air units, because this is really happening in parallel with the Pearl Harbor attack. These planes are not ready. They don't have a radar. They don't have the ability to detect an attack. And so for this card only, it doesn't project, that Allied unit does not project an air zone of influence. And then there underneath this, you've got a small Marine garrison. And so, who fought very bravely, and we'll deal with that in just a short bit. So now, I'm going to go section by section and show you how this plays out. But that's sort of, if I go back to the long shot, you've got 26 Japanese units. Again, it's all written on the card, so you don't have to remember all this. And they're going to basically launch these invasions. Okay, so in the shot now, you have the Malaya Peninsula, and so you can see in the left part of the shot, and I've spread the pieces out. They are obviously always sitting in a particular hex, but I spread them out just so you can see them. That naval unit is Force Z, this one right here. This is the famous Prince of Wales and Repulse, and they're basically there. That was a major reinforcement to the area, and they're there to try to protect Malaya Peninsula from invasion. There were a carrier was supposed to be with them, but they developed engine trouble, and that was probably a significant factor in what comes on next. And so what's going to happen is the 25th, again, moving using amphibious lift, moving like a naval unit, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's in historically invaded Kota Baru. The Japanese 38th Army is, in this case, is going to go by transportation route a half, 2, 3, so it's going to move up to the Burma border. So it's basically occupying effectively, Siam. And then this unit here is going to use a rapid movement to go 1, 2, and you can't enter an enemy hex using transportation routes. So since it's only got 3 movement points, 2.5, it's going to get to here, and as it moves through each location, they're captured. So these airfields have fallen to the Japanese as that advance just occurred. And so that's sort of the ground movement of the situation. And then this air unit is supporting this invasion. And there's a battleship that I'm going to bring over the Congo, which is going to is giving distance support to this invasion. So it's going to look something like this when it's all said and done. And so that's the circumstances. So this space has got the air and the naval supporting this invasion. Now on the card it tells you that Force Z has to respond to that invasion, and so you're going to have a battle which historically is going to lead to the destruction of Force Z. Again, I'm not going to roll the dice and do all that because it takes a lot of time to work through all the details, but again, this is all written down and just follow that in the rule booklet. A simpler thing is this Marine unit here is going to go to Miri. And again, it's using, in this particular case, there's a rule for organic transport. It's not costing you amphibious shipping because they're sort of, that cruiser is, and the destroyers in that cruiser group is supplying the lift to the Malaya, to this theater. So that completes sort of the first piece of the invasions of Iya. So that's how that looks historically. Now you see in this shot the Philippines, and you got the Allied aircraft sitting in Clark Airfield, and one of the great mysteries of World War II, I've got my own theories on this, but basically these planes, even though they know that Pearl Harbor has been bombed and they're on alert, but again, they were not into a wartime tempo. Even though they put up planes to guard themselves, they managed, in the worst case of bad luck ever, is to be landing to refuel. They didn't keep enough planes up. They didn't cycle the planes, so there was some up and some down. And basically the planes, even with all the warning, they all get caught on the ground anyway, and the place is, turned into an inferno. So again, one of the great, just you can't even design a game around that because it's just bad luck, and it's just bad timing. So again, without special rules, you can't even handle this stuff sometimes because it just falls outside of the realm of high probability. But anyway, what's happening now is that the 14th Army, again, this happened in a sequence historically, but the 14th Army, with air support from up here in Formosa, is going to be attacked by lots of Japanese planes, and those are those up there on Formosa. You've got a carrier coming in to here with help from here to invade southern Luzon, and then you've got another carrier coming into here to attack this naval unit that's over here, and then you've got an invasion of Mindanao with support from there. So that's what the invasion of the Philippines looks like from a historical point of view. And what's going to happen is that these planes are going to get pretty beat up. They'll both actually be reduced historically, and they will fly, they will be beat up here. And then there's going to be an invasion of this space, which is going to annihilate this unit. This guy is going to land, it's the 14th Army. This guy's going to land up here. These planes will, because of that conquest, these planes will have to disperse to some other location. This unit here will be reduced and retreat into this space here. So again, the Japanese get ashore. It's a reducer like that. This guy will be destroyed and captured, and they'll capture Davao. And in post-battle movement, these carriers are going to come to here. This cruiser is going to go back up to here, and Japanese are now going to bring planes forward into this location, and then these guys will displace some here to Manila, and this one's going to come down to here. So again, you can see, again, I'm going very rapidly. Again, all the details of the die rolls and all that are covered in the rule booklet. This next part's very straightforward because these are these don't have enough defenders to make a difference. But basically, these units will go here, and these are going to go here to grab those two locations. And now for the fun part, let's go a little bit of detail on the battle for Wake Island. So what's going to happen is this air unit's going to attack that air unit and is going to fail to annihilate it. And this is going to be the invasion force. And so because of the airplanes being there, the Japanese are going to roll insufficiently. But what's going to happen is that, the historically and the off-the-scale kind of outcome, this unit's going to basically, it's a value of 2, and this has got a defense of 6, so usually that's not enough to make a difference. But typically invade, your defense strength is half, so that 6 is really a 3 just for this combat. And then on top of that, the 2, you can achieve a 1.5 or you can achieve a 2x result. So since that you've got a 2, basically a 7 through 9, or 7 or 8 will give you a 1.5, so 2 times 1.5 is going to be 3, which will flip the Japanese unit. And if you get a 9, you double it. But in either case, what happened historically is this unit is reduced because of the battle. The Americans got the better die roll, and the Japanese did not get the 1.5 or better result, which they would have had a high probability of. If the air unit had been knocked out, they would have gotten a +2. They get a +2 for the naval unit, and with a +4, trying to get a 7, you've got a reasonable chance of doing that. And so then the attack would have conquered, because a 4 times 1.5 is a 6, it would have killed the Marine units, only got one step. But historically, this is how it came out, and so this is going to go back to Kwajalein, and the Americans defiantly hold on. And so when if you work back to this situation, this is the exact setup of the 1942 Game Turn 2 1942 scenario. That is the campaign scenario. And so in a future video, which will come, not too far down the road, again, I'll start to do a more, we'll actually shuffle cards, we'll go through all that. But I thought that with the December 7th, being the anniversary, and I'm sort of been trying to, again, based on the feedback I got from the first video, I decided to shoot a shorter one just to kind of walk you through this first scenario. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, and I'm going to use some advice from people. I'm going to try to make this a smaller file. Certainly it'll be a shorter file, and we'll go on from there. So thanks a lot. And this is Mark Herman signing off.